My name is Ruby Ortega. I'm 30 years old, and for 7 years, my family never once wondered how their lives stayed perfectly afloat. They never questioned why the mortgage never bounced, why Dad's car lease was magically covered, why Mom's expensive insurance remained active, or how Derek and Ashley's financial problems disappeared before becoming real crises. They didn't ask because they assumed none of it had anything to do with me. I was the quiet daughter, the background figure, the one with the boring finance job, the one who showed up to dinners out of obligation rather than invitation, a presence that filled a chair, not a place in anyone's life. Meanwhile, every month, $6,900 left my bank account to keep all of them comfortable. Mortgage, car, insurance, Derek's rent subsidy, Ashley's daycare, utilities. 84 months, over $500,000, and not a single thank you, not even an acknowledgement. They had no idea. They never cared to find out. I wasn't doing it for gratitude. I wasn't even doing it for approval. I did it because they were my family. I wanted them to be okay, even if that meant I stayed invisible. What I didn't know was that invisibility becomes unbearable the day someone points at it. The message came the night before Derek's big promotion dinner. A text from Mom at 9:47 p.m. Derek's promotion dinner tomorrow, 7 p.m., Russo Steakhouse. You should come. Not, we'd love to see you, not, it would mean a lot, just an obligation. Still, I went. Of course I did. I arrived at 6:55 p.m. The private dining room was packed. Laughter, clinking glasses, relatives passing phones around to show Derek's latest achievement. 20 chairs lined a long, polished table. Mine was the last one, at the very end, right beside the swinging kitchen door, where waves of heat and shouts from the cooks blasted out every time a server pushed through. Derek sat at the head of the table, looking like a magazine cover. Mom and Dad flanked him as if this were an award ceremony. Ashley leaned in close to Mom, glowing with pride that wasn't even hers. I sat. No one looked at me. Uncle Tom didn't nod. My cousins didn't make eye contact. A server nearly hit me with the door. I folded my napkin while half the table took selfies with Derek. Dad stood first to toast. To my son Derek, VP of Sales at 35, proof of hard work. Applause thundered. Praise flew across the table like confetti. Ambitious, brilliant, unstoppable, golden child. They listed every compliment known to mankind. My existence down at the far end didn't enter anyone's mind for a single syllable. When the noise settled, I leaned toward Derek and said softly, "Congratulations. VP is a big deal." He nodded. "Thanks, Ruby," then turned away before I even breathed out. Mom and Ashley were talking loudly. "Mom, did you see Derek's promotion post? 2,000 likes already." "So proud," Mom said, beaming. Ashley whispered something to her, glanced toward me, whispered again. Mom sighed. Then Ashley raised her voice. "Ruby." A slight hush passed down the table. I looked up. "Yeah?" Ashley tilted her head. "Why are you even here?" The table didn't go silent, but it leaned that way. People glanced over with thin interest, the way you might look at a noise you hope goes away. I blinked. "What?" "You're not adding anything. You're just sitting there. This is a celebration dinner for people who matter." Mom nodded, exasperated. "She has a point, Ruby. Why did you come?" My throat tightened. "You invited me." "Out of obligation," Mom said, "not because we wanted you here." Dad set down his utensils. "You bring this negative energy. Always have." I felt my pulse in my ears. "I'm not." "You are," Dad said. "You've always been jealous of Derek." Derek stiffened, but said nothing. Not one word. Ashley smirked like she'd been waiting years for this moment. Mom leaned in. "Just because you pay for things doesn't mean you matter, Ruby." The words struck a part of me no one had ever seen. I stood. The napkin slid from my lap, drifting to the floor. You're right, I said. Mom's eyebrows lifted. What? I pulled my phone from my purse and placed it in front of Dad. You're right, I repeated. Money doesn't mean I matter. So why am I paying for all of you? Dad laughed uncertainly. What is this? Your mortgage, I said. Your car, Mom's insurance, Derek's rent subsidy, Ashley's daycare, utilities. Ashley's smirk fell. Derek's jaw dropped. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. For 7 years, I said, every single month. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I placed $75 on the table for my untouched meal. Enjoy your celebration. I walked away as 20 stunned faces watched the person they'd never cared to see finally step out of their shadow. And as the door swung shut behind me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not guilt, not regret, not fear, relief. Because I understood with crystal clarity they'd never cared who kept them afloat. But they were about to learn what drowning felt like. That night, after walking out of the restaurant, I didn't cry, I didn't shake, I didn't even replay the scene in my head the way people do after something humiliating happens. I drove home in silence, parked, and walked up the stairs to my apartment like it was any other Friday. The moment I closed my door, the calmness settled in fully, quiet, steady, almost unnerving, like a lake right before a storm. At 9:14 p.m., I opened my laptop. 7 years of hitting financial lifelines were stored neatly in automatic transfers, disguised subsidies, and corporate benefits I'd rerouted without anyone questioning it. They trusted systems, not me. That was the problem. They believed in assistance programs and lucky timing, but not the possibility that I had been the one holding up the foundation of their lives. So I started at the top. Mortgage, cancel. Dad's car lease, remove authorization. Mom's health insurance, withdraw dependent coverage. Derek's rent subsidy, terminate corporate housing program. Ashley's daycare scholarship, revoke financial aid. Utilities, subscriptions, automatic bill pay, all of it gone with a click. By 10:47 p.m., everything they depended on for stability had been erased. Every month, I had been the silent force preventing disaster. Tonight, I simply removed myself from the equation. It felt like unhooking myself from a machine that had been draining me dry. I made myself a cup of tea, turned off my notifications, and went to bed. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. But my family didn't. At 6:02 a.m., my phone buzzed itself nearly off the nightstand. I woke to 47 missed calls, 83 text messages, and 12 voicemails. I scrolled, reading none of them. Dad had sent the first message at 3:42 a.m. Mortgage payment bounced. Bank called. What's going on? Mom followed at 4:15 a.m. Insurance canceled. They won't cover my medication now. Ruby, please call me. Derek's came at 5:03 a.m. Landlord says subsidy ended. Rent is $4,200. WTF? What did you do? Ashley's at 5:47 a.m. Daycare doubled my bill. Call me now. I set the phone face down and brewed coffee. At 7:23 a.m., someone pounded on my door. Fast, frantic knocks. Ashley's voice. I know you're in there, Ruby. Open the door. I opened it. She looked like she'd sprinted the whole way. Hair wild, mascara smeared, eyes swollen. What did you do? She demanded. Took your advice, I said calmly. What advice? You said money doesn't mean I matter, so I stopped spending it on you. Her mouth fell open. You can't just... I can. And I did. They want $1,900 this month. I can't afford that. You know I can't. That's the real price, I said. Everyone else pays it. I have kids, Ruby. And I had a family who told me I don't matter. She froze. Her breathing was shaky, uneven. We were angry, she said. You know we didn't mean what we said. Maybe, but you said it in front of 20 people, and you meant it enough not to take it back. My kids need daycare, she whispered. I need my job. I can't work without it. Then figure it out, I said. People do. She stared at me as if I'd slapped her. You're my sister, she whispered, and you asked why I was even at dinner. I closed the door. She pounded again, a single sob breaking through, but eventually her footsteps retreated down the hall. By 9 a.m., my phone lit up again. 127 new texts, 34 missed calls, 19 voicemail notifications piling over each other like a swarm. I muted the family group chat I'd never been invited to before last night. My notifications icon kept climbing. I didn't open a single message. At 9:17 a.m., the doorbell rang again, this time softly. I checked the peephole. Mom. Same clothes from dinner. Puffy eyes, hands trembling. I cracked the door open. Ruby, she whispered, please. I didn't invite her in. What happened? She asked. The mortgage company called, said payment failed. Your father's car. They took it from the driveway, and my insurance. They said I'm uninsured as of midnight. I nodded. Yes. She blinked, tears gathering. Yes? What do you mean, yes? I stopped paying. Her face collapsed. Why would you do that? You told me money doesn't mean I matter. She covered her mouth, horrified. I didn't mean... Ruby, that wasn't... I was angry. So am I said, but I didn't scream at you in a restaurant. She gripped the doorframe like she needed it to stand. We'll lose the house, she whispered. We can't afford it. You couldn't afford it for 7 years, I said calmly. You just didn't know it. Her eyes widened. What does that mean? It means I paid every bill you thought you could handle. She swayed. Why? Why didn't you tell us? Because I thought maybe helping would make me matter. Her jaw trembled. You do matter. You made that very clear last night. She shook her head desperately. Ruby, please, we can fix this. No, I said softly. You can fix this. She broke. Tears streamed down her face in silent lines. I didn't move. I didn't reach out for once. I let her feel the full weight of the world without stepping in. After 3 minutes, she turned away, shoulders shaking, and walked down the hall. At 10:23 a.m., Derek called. I answered only because I wanted to hear his excuse. Ruby, what the hell? Good morning, Derek. My landlord says I owe $4,200. He said the subsidy ended. Were you paying part of my rent for 3 years? Why? Because you couldn't afford your lifestyle. You should have told me. You didn't ask. This is insane, he snapped. You're screwing up my life. I stopped screwing up my own, I said. You'll adjust. He breathed angrily into the phone. Turn the payments back on. No. You can't just abandon us. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just not paying for you anymore. That's the same thing. Then your family bond was never love. It was dependency. I hung up, blocked his number. At noon, Mom, Dad, Derek, and Ashley showed up together. Panic in their faces, desperation pooling under their voices. They begged, they cried, they promised to treat me better. I told them no, because none of them were there to apologize. They were there for the money. And once you see it that clearly, you can't unsee it. The moment the hallway fell silent after my family left, I locked the door and leaned my forehead against it. Not out of sadness, not out of guilt, but out of a strange, deep quiet I hadn't felt in years. A quiet that said, you finally stopped being their safety net. I made lunch, ate in peace, sat on my couch, watching the sun move across my living room wall. It felt like breathing without weight on my chest for the first time in my adult life. But peace doesn't last long when people are used to living off your silence. At 3:15 p.m., my phone rang from an unknown number. Aunt Patricia, the caller ID eventually revealed when I picked up. Ruby, honey, your mother told me everything. Are you all right? I'm fine, I said. She said you canceled all the payments. I did. And that you'd been paying for years. 7. A long pause. Patricia exhaled like she was bracing herself. That's a lot of money. 579,600 so far. She whistled under her breath. Lord, Ruby. That's half a house. That was their house. Another pause. Your mother is devastated. I'm sure she is, I murmured. Losing free money is hard. That's not fair, Patricia said softly. They love you. No, I corrected gently. They need me. That's different. She didn't argue. That silence told me she agreed. What do you want, Ruby? She asked. What would make this right? Nothing, I said. I'm not looking for anything. Not closure, not an apology. If I wanted apologies, I would have asked for them years ago. She sighed sadly. Things are about to get messy, you know. I know, and I did. Because within the next 48 hours, everything began to collapse. Dad's car was repossessed at 9 a.m. Monday morning. Mom's insurance company formally notified her she was no longer covered. Ashley was forced to take unpaid leave because daycare wouldn't accept her kids without payment. Derek's landlord threatened eviction if full rent wasn't received by the 15th. The group chat, yes, the one I'd never been part of until now, exploded minute by minute. Mom, I don't understand why she is doing this. Derek, she's having a breakdown. Ashley, she's punishing us. Dad, we supported her. Cousins chiming in with questions, uncles with opinions, aunts trying to mediate. Then, inevitably, Aunt Patricia. She paid for everything, for all of you. Silence followed. Then Derek, what? Ashley, you're joking. Mom, it's complicated. Patricia, not really. She saved you. I watched the messages scroll like a bystander at the edge of a car crash, detached, observing. Not hurting anymore, just done. I left the group chat, muted all notifications, and returned to my quiet evening. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Margaret, a woman so ruthless and efficient she could slice steel with her voice. Ruby, she greeted, what can I do for you? I need to update my will. Of course. Who are we removing? All of them. There was a 3-second pause. Understood, she said, and the beneficiaries will be charities, all evenly split. Anything else? Yes, I said. I need documentation of every payment I made for them. Itemized, dated, categorized. Are you anticipating legal conflict? I'm anticipating desperation. She chuckled, but not with amusement, more with sympathy. I'll prepare everything, she said. And Ruby, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm not, I replied. And for the first time, I realized it was true. Meanwhile, my family continued unraveling. Mom showed up again 2 days later, this time looking smaller somehow. She held my doorframe like it was the only thing keeping her upright. We're going to lose the house, she said. We already got the notice. I told you, I replied calmly. 30 days. We can't afford anything, she whispered. You've been living on money you never had. Her eyes filled again. Would you have told us eventually? No, I said, because you never asked. She swallowed hard. Would we have, her voice cracked, would we have treated you better if we'd known? That's my question, I said quietly. You tell me. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again, but no answer came. And that silence, her silence, was the clearest answer I had ever gotten from my family. She left without saying anything else. 3 days later, Derek lost his job. Not demoted, not written up, fired. Performance issues. He had never been ready for VT. A fancy title had shielded him from reality the same way my money had shielded him from responsibility. Without those protections, everything crumbled. He called me from the parking lot of his office, voice shaking like he had swallowed broken glass. You ruined my life, he whispered. I didn't even flinch. No, I said. I stopped paying for the life you pretended you built. Please, he said. Please, Ruby, help me. How? I asked. By giving you money or giving you accountability? He didn't answer. He hung up crying. And for once in my life, I didn't feel guilty for his tears. By the end of the week, the entire family was collapsing at different speeds, but collapsing nonetheless. Cars gone, insurance gone, income disrupted, housing at risk, living the lives they should have been living all along, lives they could actually afford without my invisible wallet propping them up. And as I sat in my apartment sipping tea, watching the notifications fade, a strange realization settled in. I wasn't the one who fell apart. They did. All I did was stop holding them together. 2 weeks after the dinner, I was finally settling into a new kind of life, one where my phone stayed silent, where mornings weren't spent sifting through emotional emergencies that weren't mine, where my bank account actually grew instead of bleeding out quietly every month. I woke up without pressure, without resentment, without weight. Peace feels unfamiliar at first, almost like guilt, except lighter. Then, at 2:34 p.m. on a Wednesday, security from my office called. Miss Ortega, your brother is in the lobby. He says it's urgent. Of course he did. I could have said no, could have told them to escort him out, but something in me, curiosity maybe, made me sigh and say, I'll be down. Derek was pacing near the front windows. His suit was wrinkled, his tie crooked, his hair messy, not the polished VP the family used to worship. He looked older, smaller, human for the first time. When he saw me, he exhaled with relief. Ruby, he said. Thank God. I stopped several feet away. What do you want? Can we talk somewhere privately? We can talk here. He looked around but didn't argue. His shoulders slumped. I lost my job. I waited. Okay. That's it. That's all you have to say. What else would you like? He ran his hand through his hair. I wasn't ready for VP. They shouldn't have promoted me. I tried to keep up. I really did. But without the apartment subsidy, without everything covered, He swallowed. I was drowning, Ruby. And somehow, I said quietly, that's my fault? His face twisted. Everything hit at once. The bills, the rent, the car payments. I'm behind on everything. I had savings, but it's gone now. 2 weeks. That's all it took. You were living a life you couldn't afford, I said. A life my money made possible. You never built it. I did. That's not fair. It is, I said. You worked for your salary. I worked to make your life look like success. His eyes filled with something like panic. I'm living with Mom and Dad again. Of course he was. In their rental? I asked. He nodded. Ashley's there too, with the kids. It's hell. That sounds like a problem for all of you. You did this to us, he whispered. I stepped closer so he could see the truth plainly. No, Derek, I stopped doing it for you. There's a difference. He stood there trembling, his jaw clenched like it hurt. Then he finally said the words he had never said in 35 years of life. I'm sorry. For what? I asked. For that night, for not saying anything, for everything, I guess. You're sorry because you lost your job, I said calmly, not because of how you treated me. That's not true. It is. If your apartment were still paid for and your VP salary still padded by my financial triage, you wouldn't be here. He couldn't deny it. He just looked at me with the hollow expression of a man whose illusions had finally shattered. I can't do this alone, he said quietly. Yes, I replied. You can. You've just never had to. For a moment, he looked like he might collapse right there in the lobby. Ruby, he said, please. I shook my head. No. And I walked to the elevator as he called after me. I lost everything because of you. I turned just as the doors closed, meeting his eyes one last time. You lost what was never yours. The doors slid shut. Months passed. Life rearranged itself in ways I hadn't expected. I started dating again. Slowly, cautiously. His name was Nathan. Warm eyes, steady voice, the kind of man who didn't need saving and didn't expect to save me. He laughed when I laughed, listened even when I didn't ask him to. For once, someone saw me without needing anything from me. Meanwhile, my family's world kept shrinking. Mom and Dad sold the house. The equity they pulled barely covered their debts, leaving them with a 2-bedroom rental on the edge of town. They each took part-time jobs. Mom at a grocery store, Dad at a hardware shop. Ashley quit her job after daycare became unaffordable. The 3 of them, 4, counting Derek, slept in cramped rooms with arguments echoing through thin walls. Her kids shared a pull-out bed in the living room. Derek slept on the couch. It was never meant to be a home. It was a last resort. Aunt Patricia kept me updated, though never in a pushy way. "Your father cried," she told me once in the driveway. "Said he didn't know how he failed you so badly." I didn't know what to do with that. Sympathy tugged at something deep inside me, but only for a moment, because it wasn't my job to fix what had broken long before the money stopped. Then, 3 months after the dinner, a letter arrived. Hand-delivered, no return address. Derek's handwriting. I opened it and read the confession of a man who finally understood the cost of a life he had never paid for. He wrote about failure, about regret, about how he and Mom and Dad and Ashley had built their entire identities on financial stability that had never actually existed. He wrote that he was sorry. He wrote that he wished he had defended me. He wrote that they should have treated me better. For a moment, I felt something. Not warmth, not forgiveness, just a quiet acknowledgement of truth finally spoken. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Some apologies aren't for reconciliation. They're simply the final page of a chapter that needed to end. 2 years after the dinner that detonated my family's illusion of stability, life looked nothing like it used to. Not for them, not for me. I had moved into a brighter apartment with hardwood floors and a balcony that caught the morning light. My savings had grown, my emergency fund was solid. I had taken vacations, real ones, where my phone stayed quiet and my mind did too. I had been promoted at work. Nathan and I had settled into something steady, gentle, real. For the first time in my life, I wasn't holding anyone up but myself. And then, on an ordinary Thursday evening, the building manager knocked on my door holding an envelope. "Someone dropped this off for you," he said. Didn't want to leave a name. I knew who it was from before I even opened it. Mom's handwriting always leaned a little left, like the letters themselves were bracing against a wind they couldn't see. I waited until after dinner, after the dishes were washed, after the apartment had gone still, before I let myself unfold the letter. "Ruby, I don't expect you to respond. I don't even know if you'll read this, but I need to try." That beginning alone tightened something in my chest. Not pain, not guilt, just memory. She wrote about the house they'd lost, the part-time jobs they work now, how Dad's back hurt more these days, how Ashley's kids were old enough to notice that none of their classmates shared a room with 2 siblings and a mother who slept in the living room, how Derek still worked retail and came home exhausted every night. She didn't write to guilt me. Not this time. There was no pleading, no manipulation, just truth. She told me she finally understood that their comfortable life had never been theirs. It had been mine. My work, my sacrifices, my silence. She wrote, "We lived well without ever earning it. We thought we were stable. We were only supported." Then she reached the question, the one that had hovered like a shadow between us ever since the dinner. "You asked if we would have treated you better if we had known it was you." I didn't answer then. I couldn't. I read slower, almost afraid of what came next. I want to believe we would have treated you differently, Ruby. I want to believe knowing the truth would have made us see you, really see you. But I'm not sure. And that is the worst part, because you deserve better than maybe. My hand tightened around the paper. It wasn't the cruelty I had expected. It was honesty. Painful, blunt honesty. She wrote about regret not for losing the money, but for never realizing she had already lost me long before the payments stopped. She wrote that Dad cried when he saw Derek sleeping on the couch, that Ashley apologized to strangers for her loud kids because she didn't know how to apologize to me, that Derek carried guilt like a backpack of stone. She wrote, "You didn't betray us, Ruby. You freed yourself from people who didn't value you the way you deserved, and I am sorry I wasn't someone worth staying for." At the bottom was a closing line, short and careful, like she knew she didn't have the right to say anything more. "I hope you're happy. I hope you built a life that feels like yours. Mom." I folded the letter slowly and slid it into the same drawer where Derek's apology lived. Not out of sentiment, but out of clarity. Some things you keep not because you want them, but because they tell the truth. I didn't write back. I didn't call. I didn't unblock anyone. It wasn't anger anymore. It was acceptance. They had learned the hardest lesson life could teach them, that comfort built on someone else's sacrifice is not stability. It's a countdown. And when the countdown hits 0, you fall. They spent years thinking I didn't matter, years telling me directly and indirectly that I was an afterthought, a background character, an obligation. But when I walked away, the truth surfaced like a wreck rising from the ocean floor. I had been the foundation the entire time. The house, the careers, the daycare, the insurance, the lifestyle, the illusion of success, all of it existed because I quietly carried the weight no one ever thanked me for holding. And when I walked away, they didn't lose me. They lost the version of me that kept them alive. I stood on my balcony that night, looking out at the soft glow of the city, and realized something simple but profound. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't grieving. I wasn't waiting for them to change. I was free. Nathan stepped outside, wrapping an arm around my waist. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "For the first time, I think I really am." He kissed my temple. "Good. Stay that way." And I smiled because I knew I would. My family survived without me. Awkwardly, painfully, barely. But they survived. And I survived without them. Better, stronger, completely. In the end, money never meant I mattered. But walking away taught me the truth. They never could. I mattered even when I stopped giving. I mattered because I finally chose